and healing of historical trauma.
Well, I'll use a term, I think this is a Mrs. Grace Boggs term, solutionary. I think I've heard her use that term before. I think that's part of the missing narrative here in Detroit. Lisa talked about the tremendous work that goes on in the neighborhood, at the neighborhood level, and sort of the rationale for why she and some of the more forward-thinking funders have made those investments. And I echo that by saying some of the most innovative and groundbreaking work comes out of the neighborhoods and from the ground up. I lift up the water affordability plan. Thousands of Detroiters are losing their water because of their inability to pay these high monthly water bills. It's not water assistance that we need. It's a water affordability plan so that there's equity and everyone can pay their fair share. That is a plan that came out of community, came out of discussions over the past decade with activists and those who have lost their water service, really trying to fashion an alternative solution. Same thing with the community benefit agreement ordinance. Those folks were folks who come to a food pantry who said it's not enough to have a handshake deal with the developer. We need an ordinance. And here's how we're going to fight to have some say over our economic reality in this city. You look at the folks who work in the urban gardens. Those folks have taken bleak landscapes and created sites for organizing, sites for food justice. So I think the solutions are happening in the community, and it is up to us to put a finger in the eye of those folks who deny our reality every chance we get by sharing those stories.
I want to lift up just visions. I've been in a few different visioning exercises over the past few weeks, and it's just sort of occurring to me now how they relate to the same things that we're talking about led up to 1967, right, with economics and police brutality and the education system being destroyed and segregation. And so when people are asked, what do you really want? And like, if racism didn't exist anymore, what would it look like? So we did this here, we did it in the Detroit Equity Action Lab, we did it at the People's Movement Assembly here in Detroit, and then also on a national level with, there's a Truth and Racial Healing and Transformation initiative that's starting. So we did that there, and like in all of these, what people are envisioning is like land that we hold in common. Like, that you're not excluded from, nobody's excluded from it. Everybody gets to have access and be here. That we garden in that land, and that's part of our education, is gardening. Youth and elders gardening together, and the education is considered youth learning from elders. That education is open access, that everybody, there's no test, so including higher education, there's no test, there's no money, it's just, if you want to learn, you get to learn, and that's something that we provide as a community. That an economy that is built on what we need. So going back to things like food and shelter, that's what our work is to provide those things for our community. And that's what we do, and everybody has some way of being part of that. The dismantling of the prison system. So some, in one of the groups they said, there's no jails anymore, and all the jails are community, they're community centers now. That's a place that, we've changed that so that that's it's a different, we repurposed that building. Others called it, restorative justice. We have a restorative justice system that works so when people cause harm, the community works with the person that was harmed to set up a system of like, what does it take to bring you back to wholeness, and how can this person that harmed you help make that happen, and then also be helped in that process. So those are the kinds of things that came out across the board in all of those visioning sessions, and they're the exact same areas that have led to the unrest, the uprising, the decades and centuries of pain that we still have, and those are visions that I want to work towards.
So two things came to mind with the question of what are pieces of the narrative that, or the stories that we're not telling that would help fuel revolution. And one of them goes back to something Martina said about the role of the media. And, you know, I don't know what the equivalent is in economic land, but there's a lot of equivalency of greenwashing. So we might be getting 73 new jobs. Every one of them is minimum wage, right? And so, yeah, it's good to have 73 new jobs, but I think we have a responsibility to discuss and be very clear about what kind of jobs they are and who they're for. And so there's a missing piece of the economic narrative, I feel like, in Detroit when these kind of oddly celebrated things are not actually critiqued at all. We're so, you know, we're perceived as so desperate that we'll take anything. And I definitely get that. It's really hard. And we're better than that. We deserve better than that. So that's a piece of the narrative that I think has to be lifted up. And on a kind of more uplifting note, something else that never is really part of the narrative is something that's a really big part of several people in this room's life, including Linda. We have a fellowship every year, a 9-month fellowship, where 40 to 50 people learn how to organize. And they spend weekends in a hot room or a cold room, depending on the season. It's never a comfortable room. You know, learning about how power works, how to work with the media, how to organize. These are mostly folks who never went to college, maybe didn't go to high school, and who are there because they're passionate about making their communities better. And I think that there's it's really an amazing space, actually, to see every time that we end a fellowship and we have like a closing circle or an evaluation, there are many people who say, I didn't think that I could change anything, but now I know that I can. Or I didn't think that it mattered that I got evicted and that I lost my job, because I thought that was just me. And now I realize it does matter, and there's something we can do about it together. So, you know, I always cringe at the way the media covers activism and social justice work, if it covers it at all. So I think that's a really important part of the story to lift up. Now, you know, just kind of end on a note about, you know, stealing something from the disability community. I really strongly believe nothing about us without us, period. No decisions can be made about us without us in the room. And when we have been through challenges, it makes us the best people to come up with a solution, period.
So the things that are missing that need to be uplifted. 750 projects over 10 years of good people doing good work in communities. Those are the stories that aren't being told. People tell you that, you know, there are no good stories about a black and brown and Arabic and yellow. You're not looking in the right place, because I see them every day, all day long. I know the stories of Latino and black brothers and young men in Southwest Detroit who are painted as criminals and all of that. I know them as artists, street artists, who, when you give them a couple of dollars and bring some volunteers to talk to their neighbors, and they paint a whole alley and paint all of the back alley with beautiful, beautiful murals, and then they have a whole mural of streets, and they create galleries where old people and young people, black people and white people come together, and they make all kind of different art. I know in other areas of the city where Latino young men and African American men are teaming up together for it to be in coalition, and understand that the issues that impact Latino young men are the same that impact African American young men, and where there is no synergy between them, they can support each other on things that can. I know that when you bring African American families together in Cody Rouge and the women start talking while their kids are involved in youth development programs and they all start to talk about their losses and the level of depression, and then they all decide that, you know, no, they haven't gone to the mental health through the mental health system because they find that they won't be understood and there'll be nobody that looks like them, and then they send me to go find money so they can have their own culturally significant family-oriented grief and loss and trauma program where they engage through drumming and through self-care and through support networks for over a year, and all of them report some phenomenal outcomes, and they become better parents, more of them become employed, and they report better health. I know stories like that all day long. Those are the things that are not being said because people aren't looking for them. And I'm looking for opportunities. You got opportunities to tell? I'll tell stories. I'll send you to people that can give you a story that will inspire you, that will tell you about the Detroit that I know. So again, we create pathways. There's a lot of good work that happens here. There's a lot of good, I know a lot of the good work is going on out there. Create pathways so people can come in and know about your work because they're not really looking for it. Because there's a whole lot of good work out there, and we just have to create pathways for it. So I'm just hopeful that we will continue to create those pathways, push back, and challenge those narratives. There are people working against mental health stigma, and I know them. You want to talk to them? I know them. There are people everywhere in the city doing phenomenal work. I've been in the city that's always been changing and always been growing, and I'm always looking for it to become something else, and it continues to amaze me, and to continue to become something else. So there's more around the corner, even though there's a whole lot on the ground right now. So yeah, I'm inspired. I still love Detroit. I'm gonna keep loving Detroit. Thank you.